Hello and welcome to another deck profile in Master Duel. Today, we're going to take a look at the list that I basically asked you if you want me to basically share in my community tab, and you probably already know from the thumbnail, and that is Prankits. Now, Prankits is a really cool deck that have been working really well for me. I basically crafted this deck, and I've been going basically 22 in terms of win rate, which is really crazy because it's a deck that I never played before. So I'm very happy with this list. It's not the perfect list, of course. I'm still working on to make this better, but overall, I've been having a very great success with this, as you pretty much heard from me. But before we jump right into the list itself, I'm going to remind you that if you want to see more videos like this, please consider hitting the subscribe button. It helps a ton. And without further ado, let's jump right into the list itself pretty quickly, because I know people know how to play Prankits. I'm going to explain this as best as possible, but also pretty quickly. And then I'm also going to share with you a few combos that I think are very important for you to know playing this deck. So let's get started. So the entire gimmick of Prankits is basically trying to summon one of your two main boss monsters, which is either Buttle Butler or the Reap-Roaring Rooster, depending on the matchup. Buttle Butler is your Raigeki during the opponent's turn. And then, or should I say, like, whatever. But basically, it is a Raigeki, and then when it dies by an opponent card effect, it's allowing you to special summon, or should I say, like, target one non-fusion monster in your graveyard and special summon it. In the case of Rooster, it's basically a Harpy Feather Duster during your turn or your opponent's turn. You can destroy all spell traps your opponent control by tributing it, just like you do this, but you just tribute it for destroy back row. And then if this card in your position is entered or carried by opponent card effect, you get to add any card from your graveyard to your hand or a monster that is a Prankits monster except a Link monster. Or actually, you can target any card in your graveyard, which is actually absolutely ridiculous when you think about it. But the point is that this are the two boss monsters that you want to summon. Buttle Butler is useful for most matchup. Rooster is really good against matchups like Eldritch. So we will go over the combos on few combos that are allowing you to also summon this one as well. Don't worry about that. But for the main line of the deck itself, you have four main deck monsters that if you use them for a Link summon or a Fusion summon of a Prankit monster, you get the ability to use their cost effect and then also summon another name from deck. In the case of Fancies, you send a Prankits card from your deck to the graveyard, and then special summon another Prankits monster. Dropsies, which is the water one, basically give you 1,000 life points, and then you summon another name. Lampsies, burn your opponent for 500, and then you summon another name. And Roxy's, you banish a card from your hand, draw a card, and then you get another name to your side of the field, which of course cannot be the original. The other card that I also run in 3, which does allow me to see more names for your Prankits monsters, because it is important to see them, is 3 copies of the field spell Prankits Place. On activation, it's giving your Prankit, like giving you to search a Prankits card. You can only activate 1 per turn, but it's still really good. But I would say this is that it's also have additional 2 effects. That is, if you Link summon during your turn, like you can make your opponent monsters lose 500 attack, all of them permanently. And if you fusion summon, you make all monsters you control, any of them, gain 500 attack permanently. So this is the additional utility, but mostly what you care about this card is just a search for your other Prankits names. And the other way, of course, to search is Terraforming, which will search the field spell, which will give you a Prankits name. So seeing 16 names is actually very good. And then the last monster that we run in our deck, which will make sense very well when you'll see in one of the combos, is 3 copies of Thunder Dragon. Now, Thunder Dragon is a very cool card because you can discard this card and add 2 copies of Thunder Dragon to your hand, giving you the additional cards in your hand, like surging up your deck, and also have really good material, or should I say cards in your hand to banish for Roxy's. But also on top of that, we do run in our extra deck a Colossus. So Colossus is a very strong fusion monster, which we'll get to it when we get to the extra deck section, but this is a card that's allowing you to facilitate that, so I might as well run that, and we do have a Thunder monster in our deck that take advantage of this, which is Fancies, so this is really cool. But that does it for the monster lineup, except from the hand traps. For the hand traps, this is my choice. Of course, you can change depending on what you like specifically. I run 3 Max C, 2 Ash Blossom, 2 Gammas, and 1 Driver. This is because, of course, of my collection and what I was able to craft. But it's been working really fine for me. I might consider changing the Gammas, actually, for better hand traps. But like I said, again, it's been working quite fine as an overall. Now for the spells, the spell that I run specifically are Raigeki and Monster Reborn because these are easy cards to get from your collection because of the solo game, and also just in general, they are useful to run as one-offs. Again, you can cut these cards down for basically additional other hand traps or other break board cards that you feel are necessary, but these have been doing really well for me. 2 copies of Polymerization because we do need a fusion spell in our deck. We do need to sometimes see a fusion spell in our hand because we do have our own archetype fusion spell, but our combos do depend sometimes opening up on Polymerization because Pandemonium, which is the archetype fusion spell, which is basically a fusion spell but a quick play, locking us for prank hits for the rest of the turn. So sometimes for our combos, in order for them to be better, we want to have a fusion spell that doesn't lock us. I only like to run 2 because otherwise this card is pretty bricky. Still a very good card. And also, I want to say this, is that you don't want to run too many of these because there is one game that I actually won in the end, but it was still very hard to win, is that I opened up with too many fusion spells in my hand and no prank hit monster, but I was still able to win in the end and grind my opponent somehow with the cards in my hand, so that was fine. But again, like I said, it's very hard on your deck if you run too many of these, so that's why I only like to run 2 of this, and also 2 copies of Pandemonium. Then Terraforming, I already explained. Instant Fusion, we have 2 Instant Fusion targets, level 5s in our extra deck. There is a specific one we like to summon, but the other one is also good just in case. Then we have Thunder Dragon Fusion, basically a fusion spell for our big boss monster, which is a thunder monster, and if we need to get additional names back into our deck, which are these 3 specifically, which is Fancies, Lamseas, and Dropsies, we're able to just shuffle them back into the deck, get more names to our deck into the grind game, so like if we have additional names on the field, we can just link them off and kind of like do combos again, and then also getting a search during the next turn for another copy of Fancies or a copy of Dragon, which will give us another full-up, which is pretty cool. And your way mostly to summon this, if you don't use, is Verte Anaconda, because Verte Anaconda is just good with that. Freak Prank It plays, I already went over it. 2 copies of Twin Twisters, because we need back row, and we don't really care about discarding cards most of the time, because most of our combos are like 1 or 2 card combos. 2 copies of Cold by the Grave to deal with Eldritch and protect ourselves through hand traps. 2 copies of Pandemonium, which I already mentioned. This is a quick play fusion spell for the archetype that lock you into the archetype, but it's still really good, and it's a card that you're trying to recover to then set on your side of the field to then just fusion summon during the opponent's turn and getting your copy of Battle Butler. And then for the last card that I do run at 1, I know that there are some people who think that you need to run 2 Pranks and 2 Pandemonium. Technically up to you if you want to, but the last card is Prank Hits Pranks. The first effect mostly doesn't matter, but it does come up sometimes, and you can discard 1 card and special summon 1 Prank Hits token to your side of the field, which is actually kind of nice, but mostly what you care about is the effect during the end phase to target 3 of your Prank Hit cards in your graveyard except itself, or its own name, and then shuffle them into the deck and draw a card, which is really powerful because it's giving you the option to continue grinding your opponent. And there are cards, again, that can get this back from your graveyard back to your hand regardless over and over again, so there's really no reason to run more than 1 copy. But that does it for the main deck. 40 cards main deck. I'm hoping it's explained really well. If you have any questions in the comments down below, let me know. Now we'll move on into the extra deck. For the extra deck, I'm actually going to start with the links first because I think they're explaining a lot of things more for the deck. The first link I'm going to talk about is Prank Hit Meow Meow Mew, or I like to call it Meow Meow. Basically, this card is absolutely awesome. It's required 1 level 4 lower Prank Hit monster. You can only summon it once per turn, but the idea of this card is that during the opponent's turn, if you tribute summon you need to activate the effect of tribute. Basically, if a Prank Hit monster you control would tribute to itself to activate the effect, you can banish this card from your graveyard or you control instead, which giving you basically 2 uses of Battle Butler, Raigeki effect, or 2 usage of Harpy Feather Duster effect of Rooster, which is really powerful, and it's also just an easy way to trigger your monster's effects. I'm still astounded this card is at 3 in Master Duel, but it's a pretty strong card. Next card, which is very important, is 2 copies of Cockle-Doodle-Doo. Because Meow Meow is at 3, you only need 2 Doodle, although you could make an argument you can run 2 of these. I do think you need to run 3 just for the grind game, but Doodle, you only need to run 2. This card specifically, when it links summon, search for your Pranked Spell and Trap, and then you contribute this card whatever you want to basically target 2 Pranked cards with different name in your graveyard except Link Monster and add them to your hand, which allowing you to basically accumulate the enough resources that you need to just fusion summon your opponent's turn into a Bottle Butler. Because the other Link Monster, Bao Bark, have an additional effect that a Pranked Monster discard points to gain 1000 attack, but mostly what you care about is the second effect that is the same thing as Cock-a-doodle-doo effect, but during the opponent's turn, to basically target 2 Pranked cards with different name except Link Monsters and add them back to your hand. So you'll see in the first combo how that specifically works. So this is basically the resource management with the Link Monsters in the extra deck. The other Link Monster is of course Virtua Anaconda, I already went over that. Rooster also went over that as well, and Access Code, because we have different kinds of attributes of Link Monsters. Why not have an easy Link Monster that we can bring with a great deal of ease as a 4300 or sometimes even 6300 that can banish a bunch of cards in our graveyard, pop our opponent back row if we're dealing with like, a back row deck or any other deck, and just attack for game. Makes a lot of sense. If you don't have a card like this, you can also run Boral Sword, but I think this is the better option out of the two. In the case of the only Xyz monster, we have Totally Awesome, because you can make this with the 2 copies of Dropsies, which you'll see in the second combo is actually pretty easy to make, so that's actually really good. And then in the case of the Fusion monsters, we have 5 of these. Now these 2 are basically instant fusion targets, but the one that you're going to mostly summon is Pranked's Rocket Ride. Rocket Ride on summon can help you chain block your opponent by losing 1000 attack, and it can attack directly this turn. Even in turn 1, you can use this effect, so don't worry about that. So you can just activate this as like a chain to lock your opponent from activating, or should I say, prevent your opponent from activating Ash Blossom against your Prank Kids monsters, so it will be able to resolve. Now this card main effect is that you can tribute this card and target 2 Prank Kids card non-fusions in your graveyard with different names, special summon them. But of course they cannot attack this turn, yada yada yada, you don't really care about that. The entire idea, you get 2 names back from your graveyard, which can allow you to link off and do your entire combo. Weather Washer is basically the same thing, but during the opponent's turn, but it's mostly for the grind game if you need to do that as well. Like, even if you want the Rooster back, it's actually allowing you to get that if it was summoned properly. And the other idea is that this card, if your Pranked monster attacks, your opponent cannot activate card or effect until the end of the damage step, which is sometimes actually really useful dealing with some particular heavy back row decks, so I do like this card. It's not as good, but it's still very cool. Then Bottle Butler, I already talked about. You do need 2, in my opinion. You can make the argument to run 1, but I do think you need 2, because you're going into this one a lot more than you're going into your Link 4 monster. And with the new support and everything, and also Meow Meow and everything like that, it's a lot easier to go into 1 copy of this during the opponent's turn, even from 1 card, so you want to run 2 copies of this, in my opinion. The last one is Thunder Dragon Colossus. This one can be fusion summoned or special summoned by tributing a Thunder monster if a Thunder monster effect was activated from the hand, therefore the reason why we run 3 Thunder Dragon. This card will prevent your opponent from adding any cards from their deck to their hand except from drawing them, and if this card will be destroyed by a card effect or by battle, you can banish a Thunder Dragon from your graveyard instead. So yeah, this card is very annoying, it's strong, it's big, and it also prevents your opponent from doing anything. But that's pretty much does it for the Pranked list. Pretty simple, pretty straightforward. You don't have to run the Thunder Dragons if you don't want to, but I felt they added additional flavor, which is very annoying if you're able to get them to your side of the field. But that's pretty much does it for the list itself. Let's move on into the combo section. Welcome to the combo section. In the combo section, I'm going to share with you 4 combos that I think are very important for you to learn playing this deck. The first combo is only requiring you to open up with 1 Pranked monster, it doesn't matter which, and you're going to end up on a pretty interesting board. So let's get started. So starting things off, you're going to, of course, normal summon your Pranked monster, link it into the Meow Meow, use of course, the effect of the Lamseas in this particular case, burn your opponent for 500, summon the Dropsies, link these 2 into the Duel, activate Doodle-Doo, and then Dropsies effect. I think you mostly, actually in a normal case, you want the Dropsies to resolve if your opponent will Ash Blossom, so you want this one to be the Chain Link 2, but of course this is a demonstration, so I do show it however I want to. But the point is, Dropsies will summon another name from deck, and then Pranked's Duel-Doo will add to your hand the Pandemonium. We're now going to activate the Pandemonium, use the 2 monsters in our side of the field, summon the copy of Rocket Ride, use the Fancies effect because we use that, send the Pranked's Pranks, summon the last one, which in this particular case will be the Roxy's. Now we're going to use the effect of Rocket Ride, summon the 2 names from the graveyard, which will be, one of them have to be Duel Do, and the other one can be whatever you want to. And then you can use the Duel Do effect, tribute, get the 2 spells back to your hand, and then you can basically just link those 2 into a Bao Bark, banish a card off your hand with the Rock Seize, and special summon one of the names directly from your deck, which is required for the fusion summon of Bottle Butler. So that's kind of the entire combo itself. You set the Pandemonium, you activate the Pranks. During the end phase, you're going to shuffle 3 cards from your graveyard, which will be, like you've seen, Rocket Ride, Doodle Do, and Roxy's. These are the preferred one. You shuffle them back into the deck, draw 1 card, and then during the opponent's turn, you use the effect of Bao Bark, you tribute it, get the 2 other names in your graveyard that are not the monsters from your field back to your hand, and then immediately when you're able to, activate the Pandemonium, basically fusion summon, get the 3 effects, and essentially get yourself, again, a full entire board, and get yourself the Bottle Butler with 2 interruptions. So basically you can just use, because of Meow Meow effect, you can basically pop once and then pop an entire again, which will then just tribute it again. But you also got yourself an entire follow-up with 3 monsters on your side of the field, and you got yourself basically 2 Reigeki effects as well, if you have to. Still 5 cards in your hand, and basically could be hand traps and stuff like that. But that does it for the first combo. Pretty simple and straightforward. Now let's move on into combos that are a little bit getting more interesting, and we're going to start with combo number 2. Alright, so for our second combo, the combo that I like to call the Totally Awesome combo, this particular combo requires you to open up with Polymerization as your fusion spell, plus either a Drop Seize or a Fan Seize. It's preferred to open up with one of those 2 specifically, and in this particular case, I open up with a Drop Seize. Because if you do open up with Lamb Seize and Rock Seize, the combo will be significantly worse. You will not end with a Bao Bark, but if you do this, you will end up with a Bao Bark, and you also end up with a Pranks, which will give you the ability to shuffle things back into your deck. So now let's get started. We're going to start things off with the normal summon, of course, of Drop Seize. Drop Seize will link 2 into Meow Meow. We're going to summon the Fan Seize, link these 2 off, Doodle Do, Chain Link 1, Chain Link 2, that's the way you're supposed to do that. We're going to get the Pandemonium into our hand and send the Pranks to the graveyard, which will also summon the Lamb Seize. We're going to activate the effect of Doodle immediately, actually, getting the Pranks to your hand and getting the Drop Seize, and then use the Drop Seize in our hand and the Lamb Seize in our side of the field to fusion summon into the Rocket Ride. Rocket Ride effect will allow us to basically Chain Link to block the Lamb Seize, and then we're going to summon the copies of Rock Seize, and then we're going to use discard effect to basically just get the 2 names back from our graveyard. Now we're going to use these 2 specifically. We're going to link into the Bao Bark, and we're going to basically banish a card from our hand due to the effect of Rock Seize, draw a card, and summon a second copies of Drop Seize. Now we're going to Xyz summon into Totally Awesome, going to activate Pranks, going to set the copy of Pandemonium, activate the effect of Pranks, shuffle the 3 normal material into the deck, draw a card, and pass the turn to our opponent. Now in this particular case, basically what you get, you still get the Bao Bark, which will allow us to get these 2 back to our hand when we need it to, but you also have Totally Awesome, which do have these 2 as a material. Totally Awesome have the effect that it's can send 1 Aqua monster from your hand or face up from the field to the graveyard, negate an activation, destroy the card, and then send it to your field. But when it's also sent to the graveyard, it can target a water monster in the graveyard and add it to your hand. So immediately when you use this card effect, you can also just add one of your Drop Seeds that are in your graveyard back to your hand, which will give you the ability to use Pandemonium during the opponent's turn and fusion summon into your copy of Bottle Butler. But yeah, that's pretty much how the combo works for combo number 2. Now let's move on into third combo, which is basically your double boss monster combo, which is actually one of my favorites, if not my favorite one. Alright, so for the third combo for this deck, we have a combo that requires you to open up with any 2 Pranked monsters. It doesn't matter which 2, but this combo will allow you to end up on both Rooster and the Bottle Butler at the same time, which is absolutely awesome. So let's get started with the combo. So starting things off, we're going to normal summon one of the name. It doesn't really matter which. We're going to the same combo line, do the same thing, summon the fancies, blah, blah, blah. The usual stuff. Use this card to add the Pandemonium, and then you get to send the place to the graveyard. We're summoning the copy of Roxy's this time because we have the other name in our hand. And then we're going to use the Pandemonium in our hand to fusion summon the 2 monsters, which one from our hand and one from our field, to go into the Rocket Ride, which will trigger both of their effects. and then you chain link this, of course, to chain block, and then you're just going to use both of their effects, of course, to summon just 2 names. In this particular case, I just make each other summon the opposite, but it doesn't really matter. And then you're going to use these 2 to summon into Bao Bao Bark, and then you're going to use these 2 to summon to the Roaster. Now we're going to activate the effect of Rocket Ride. We'll summon both back the Bao Bao Bark and the Doodle. We're going to use the effect of Doodle, trigger the Pandemonium and the Lamses engrave, set the Pandemonium, have the Lamses in hand, and pass the turn to our opponent. During the opponent's turn, of course, this is the computer, so they're not really doing a whole lot. We're going to tribute the Bao Bao Bark, get the 2 copies of the other 2 particular names that I didn't get to my hand with the effect of Doodle, and then activate the Pandemonium, shuffle all 3 cards, go into the Battle Butler, and then basically trigger all 3 effects to summon, again, all the entire board, like fill the entire board with Prank Kids monsters, and then just, you know, also have 2 interruption boss monsters. Now, in the effect of Fancy specifically, most of the time, if I don't have anything else to send, I will send a Place, because Place is a harder once per turn activation, and we don't really need it that much after we're seeing 1 Prank Kid name, so this is my preferred choice to send to the graveyard if you already just send the pranks. But the point is, this is your end board. You're going to get at least 1 Regeki and 1 Harpy Feather Duster, and also you get the choice between having the second Harpy Feather Duster or the second, I guess, what are called Regeki. So the first one you can decide to save, and then you have still both of these to use however you want to. So this is actually really fun. So you can have either 2 Regeki by using when you use discard first effect to save it with a Meow Meow and then use its effect again, or you can have 2 effects of Harpy Feather Duster by saving it the first time and then use it again if you feel like it's necessary. Most of the time I'm actually saving the Battle Butler and then I'm using this if I have to and then use this again. But the point is that you got yourself the 2 boss monsters. They're here on your side of the field with an additional really nice pull-up. Still 3 cards in hand, which can be whatever, and your deck is very good. So yeah, that's pretty much does it for combo number 3. Now let's move on into fourth combo number 4, which is the Thunder Dragon route for this deck. Alright, so for our 4th and final combo, the Thunder Dragon combo, you're required to open up with Thunder Dragon itself, and then any Prank Kids monster that is not Fancies. It's preferred to not be Fancies because this will make your combo a little bit better, but you can also open it with that as well, but like I said, you prefer that not to be Fancies, the level 1 Thunder. So in this particular case, we use the Lamses. Now, in this particular case, the first thing we're going to do is that we're going to activate Thunder Dragon, because if our opponent decides to Ash this card right now, we just lost the Colossus, that's fine. We can still do the normal combo with Lamses, do the same combo as combo number 1, but if they don't do that, we are going to get the Colossus and the Rooster as our end board in our side of the field, which is really powerful. So let's get started. Normal summoning the Lamses, we're going to go into Meow Meow, we're going to do the same thing, summon the Dropsies, going to with these 2 into Doodle effect. Again, the chain links matter when you essentially play this, but in this particular kind of like explanation, I don't really care about like Ash Blossom because of course this is against the computer. But you're going to summon this time around the Roxy's, and the other one effect, of course, you're going to add the Pandemonium from your deck to your hand. You're going to immediately actually do something very strange. We're going to use the Doodle-Doo to link summon into another Doodle-Doo with the copies of Roxy's, because you can do that to trigger the Roxy's effect, to then banish the Thunder Dragon that you don't need from your hand, draw a card, and then summon the Fancies directly from your deck. Now we're going to use the Fancies effect. We're going to tribute it to summon the Thunder Dragon Colossus, and then we're going to use Doodle-Doo effect finally. Get the 2 cards back to your hand, activate the Pandemonium from your hand using the 2 cards that you already added, and then summon the copy of Rocket Ride. Now we activate the effect of Fancies. We're going to send to our graveyard the Pranks, summon the other name from the deck that we want to, tribute the Rocket Ride, we're going to summon back the Doodle-Doo, and we're going to get any other name from our side of the field, and then link all of these 3 off into our copies of Rooster, which will have the ability to use, again, the double Harpy Feather Duster due to the effect of Meow Meow. So we get ourselves a mistake. basically stopping our opponent from doing anything, adding them anything from the deck to hand. We get ourselves still 5 cards in our hand with a Thunder Dragon that in a later turn, if we need to, we can just banish with another copy of Roxy's. We get ourselves double Harpy Feather Duster against dealing with everything, and then 3, or should I say 4 random cards that can be whatever, hand traps, follow-up cards, whatever you need specifically. Of course, depending on, of course, what you draw. So that is really, really cool. But that does it for the 4th combo and the final combo as an overall. Hope you enjoyed. Hope you learned something from this deck. I think this deck is great. I love this deck a whole lot more than I actually expected I did. Because originally I didn't really like this deck, and I want to be honest, because the main deck monsters artwork that much, but it's actually grew on me. I actually like them a lot more now, and it's very, very fun to play, and I wanted to share my experience because I had a lot of fun, and I think it's a great deck to help you win some games if you're looking for something fun, simple, and essentially very straightforward. You just need to learn specifically how to play. Now, the deck does have one weakness, which we don't really have a whole lot of interruptions, but overall, the deck is still really, really fine and have very just good combos. So I do like this deck quite a bit. But that does it for the combo section, and that is for the deck profile as a whole. Hope you enjoyed. Hope you learned something. Like I said again, remember, creativity is the key in this game. Have a good day, stay safe, and I'll see you in the next video, which will probably going to be the next physical deck profile. Bye-bye.